And the reality is that the derivatives market right now is in excess of $1 quadrillion, more than 999 trillion dollars. 1 quadrillion. So I've heard from people involved with that industry, knowledgeable people. They genuinely believe that the derivative market's going to implode, and it will be a bigger implosion in 2008. So, coming back to Scott Bessent, he expected this announcement to lower the price of oil. It didn't. And it's not going to lower the price of oil because the oil is not out there in the abundance. They're short 20 million barrels a day. And no other country can make it up.
Yeah, the question, Larry, today, the reporter on CNBC asked Scott Bessent that does the economic campaign against Iran include China? And he said that many conversations are best to have in private. He said that China is receiving 50% of its oil from the West Asia, from the Persian Gulf. But moments ago, we've learned from the Chinese foreign ministry saying that it doesn't recognize the US sanctions against Iran, and China will not comply with the economic warfare campaign initiated by the United States, by Donald Trump this week. And I think this is going to be one of the most important topics during the meeting that Donald Trump is going to have next week with Xi Jinping.
Yeah. Well, let me give you an example. You have neighbors?
Yeah, I do.
Do the neighbors have kids?
Yeah, they do.
Okay. So it's one thing for you to tell your son, you do this or else I'm going to cut your allowance, because you have financial leverage over your son. But you can't go to your neighbor's kid and say, you do what I tell you or I'm cutting your allowance. They're going to look at you and say, who's that crazy Iranian next door? Yeah, you can't tell us what to do. Well, that's essentially what the United States still believes, that Iran is somehow its vassal, that Iran has to deal with U.S. dollars, that Iran has to respond to what the United States says. That may have been the case a year ago, but not now. Iran has completely divorced itself from the U.S. dollar, and Iran is now aligned with China and Russia. It's dealing with Chinese currency, and it's got its money in Chinese banks. So these end of the world sanctions that Bessent's talking about, they're stupid. The only possible country it could hurt that's within Iran's realm is Pakistan. But again, for Pakistan, it's going to be a choice. Are they going to align themselves with the United States or with China? My bet is they're going to align themselves with China, because China actually is a bigger industrial power now, and Pakistan can see that China is the wave of the future, not the United States.
This is not something new for Donald Trump. He did the same in his first term. You remember withdrawing from JCPOA and putting tremendous sanctions on Iran. It's basically halfway through his first term, he did that. And right now, second term, the same thing, withdrawing from the MOU and doing the same thing. Tremendous sanction. I'm going to do this. But
he hasn't learned a thing. That's for sure.
The situation is different this time around. I don't know if he fully appreciates what's going on right now.
Well, just think about what he said last night with respect to Iran. So Iran's defeated. You've wiped out Iran's army. You've wiped out Iran's air force. You've wiped out Iran's navy. You've obliterated their missile system. They don't have anything left on the nuclear front. Therefore, we need to impose more sanctions. I thought you defeated him. Why do you need more sanctions? Sanctions imply you need to punish a country to make it do what you want it to do. So from the Trump telling of the story, we've already wiped out all of Iran's ability to resist. And then they got that iron blockade, the steel wall, the blockade, nothing gets in or out. Okay, I get it, if that's the case. Why even call for new sanctions? Doesn't make sense. So what this means is this is a sign of desperation by the United States. Nothing they've done has worked. They have no control over Iran. And this is a desperate backdoor method to try to get it by pressuring other countries. And as China said, screw you. We're not, you're not going to tell us what to do, and we'll deal with Iran as we want.
Do you think, is he concerned about the debt that has been increased? Right now is about $40 trillion.
Well, he should be. He should be, but I don't think he is. Bessent is starting to get concerned because, they've been fighting to avoid raising the yields on the Treasury bill, and man, stock market today said, no, we don't believe you anymore. So there's problems with the Department of Treasury right now.
It seems that J.D. Vance believes, in his recent interview, he said that Scott Bessent is controlling everything. Here is what he said.
Let's talk for a minute about Iran.
No, let me just... He believes that everything is under the control, under Scott Bessent. And let me just bring it here.
The debt is too high. Even though we inherited this debt bomb from the Biden administration, we actually do have a plan to get the economy growing faster than the debt, and that's the most important thing. The issue that we've had under the Biden administration and what we're still kind of dealing with is that the debt was growing faster than American GDP. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. That's something that we're certainly fixing every single day in the Trump administration. But even though the media doesn't cover this, I'm glad you're asking this question, because Scott Bessent is very much on top of it. He knows it's a problem, and he's got the president's empowerment to do something about
it.
Yeah, ridiculous. I mean, it's just Bessent's not on top of it.
He's just genius. I forgot. Donald Trump is genius. He said that my name is Genius. Genius Act, the new. But Larry, how do you think that? Let's assume the continuation of these two wars. How is that going to influence the long-run strategy of the United States in reducing? Because one of the main concerns since the day one to reduce this, that debt, Donald Trump multiple, I would say 10 times since he took power, since he was elected in January 2025, he said that he's going to reduce the debt. But it's just going up. Nothing is coming down.
Yeah, he's added $3 trillion in 18 months. And then there's never been this quicker growth of the debt of the United States in the history of the United States. And this is unprecedented. So, I think the economic, what's going to sabotage, continue to prevent the United States from really getting any movement with Iran will be the economic chaos that I believe is coming. That when Wall Street starts crashing and the price of diesel is becoming exorbitant, and farmers aren't able to get into the fields to harvest crops, trucks aren't able to haul food from one point to another. You're going to see some widespread unrest in the United States. And that's where I think Trump's going to be forced to focus, frankly.
Is he concerned of the situation, or he's just feeling, he's going to continue? Joe Biden gave him the war in Ukraine. He's going to give the war in Ukraine together with the war in Iran. Because it's a very important decision if he accepts the Iranian dominance on the Strait of Hormuz, or the new mechanism of the Strait of Hormuz. Everyone would point him, it would say it was Donald Trump who accepted that. I assume he's not going to do that because, he knows the complexity of that, how they're going to hit him. That's why he's going to hand it over to the next administration. Say, I have nothing to do with it. If they do it, they did it. I didn't do it.
Well, I don't think he'll. I wonder if he'll survive this term. I wonder if he'll be forced to resign for health reasons or other things before the end of the term, and just to get J.D. Vance in there to have a hope of saving Republicans. Not that I know in some parts he's not considered much of a savior, but Trump's base is quite shattered, and he may think he's got a stronger base out there, but he doesn't.
Larry, what does he want from Iran? Let's assume Iran, he said the negotiation, the deal he's seeking for. What is that deal exactly that he wants from Iran? What is...
Get rid of the Islamic Republic, for starters. But
exactly.
eliminate the IRGC. Very simple stuff. But should be impossible to implement. And then a complete disarmament. Get rid of all of their ballistic missiles and combat aircraft. That's what the United States would want. Iran, I think, is in a stronger position to get what it wants. They really haven't articulated it yet, so maybe you've got some new insights.
I was amazed how, I don't know if you saw the interview of Jake Sullivan. He had an interview on Bloomberg, and he was asked about the new... You remember what you told me last night about the connection that Donald Trump made through Tulsi Gabbard and connection with the Kurdish people in Iraqi Kurdistan, and then talking with the head of...
Trying to bribe.
Yeah, exactly. It seems that it was reported on Axios as well. And today I saw the interview of Jake Sullivan, and the reporter of Bloomberg asked him, how do you feel about the report on Axios mentioning the same story you told us last night? He said, yeah, there is division in Iran. We're trying to find the proper way to deal with that and to play them against each other somehow. It's a global sort of understanding on the part of the establishment in Washington. They literally feel that they can play one side against the other side, or there are some sort of drastic division in Tehran that they can play them against each other. To my understanding,
they've done it with the whole issue of terrorism as well. Called it. They wanted to present. Number one, they present Iran as the primary sponsor of terrorism, number one perpetrator of terrorism, but they're not. And when you look back on it over the last 25 years, the most active groups are all Sunni groups funded by Gulf Arabs and funded by the CIA, too, in several cases. So then you got to ask yourself the question, was the rise of these Sunni Salafist groups, terrorist groups, a lot of times their target was Iranian officials, Iranian people. It looks like that was a deliberate strategy on the part of the United States that, we'll cultivate these jihadists and turn them loose on Iran. Can't trust the United States.
The connection with these Salafis and Wahhabis, it started in Russia, Larry, in Chechnya, in Dagestan, then spread it all over the West Asia, or it was in the West Asia, then go into Russia?
No, it was in West. It started in Afghanistan. I mean, Afghanistan predated the Chechen wars in Russia by 10 years. And that was, you had, if you will, these leftover willing jihadists, and really, what better place to use them than send them to Russia to stir up trouble, which is what happened.
Do they really believe that they can revive that movement again as part of the new, because Turkish government somehow trying to cooperate, I would say, with the agenda of the Turkish people all around from Syria to the Central Asia. They're trying to make some sort of move,
Yeah.
And
well, the United States has played both sides of the fence. I mean, al-Jilani / al-Shada is a case in point. He was about destroying Iran, not about promoting unity among Muslims. They viewed Iran as an enemy. And now here he is. Originally, they said the United States was the great Satan. Well, they don't mind sitting down with the great Satan now. And let the great Satan give you a back rub there, Jelani. This is it's really a shameful period in U.S. history that's allowed itself to side with these people. But again, it's always a marriage of convenience. The minute they become expendable, we get rid of them.
do you see any scenario under which Washington would somehow change its policy in the West Asia? I would argue that these policies are of concern not only for Iran and for the West, all these governments in the West Asia, but also for Russia. For the case of Chechnya and Dagestan, we know that.
Right.
Do you see any sort of scenario under which Washington would change its policy, would somehow say, we didn't get that much from these people, so let's talk with the governments, let's talk with the people, the real players in the region, in Eurasia and in the West Asia?
Well, it's going to vary country to country. So like in Syria, they're going to talk to al-Shada. That's their line in, and they'll coordinate that with the Turks, I'm sure, and the Israelis probably. And I'm sure there's journalists in Turkey that could actually publish the story about how Turkey is being betrayed by Israel and by the United States. But I think they stay largely silent. So you're going to have this flood of what we had in Chechnya was we had this flood of outsiders come in to stir it up. And they were fighting against and killing Muslims. I heard that directly from General Abdi Aludinov. He was a young man fighting back then. So the United States is the master of mayhem. And anything they can do to cause mayhem, it's going to do.
In Russia, they were playing both sides. One of them was on the part of the Muslim, Wahhabi Salafism. On the other hand, white nationalists in Russia saying that these people are not part of us. These people are the enemy,
Right. But that, that again, that's a minority, fringe view, because that's one of the things Russia does very well. They live with and accommodate their fellow citizens who happen to be Muslim. So you don't run into the kind of tension that you do here in the United States, for example.
The Israeli defense minister today said Erdogan is leading Turkey into dangerous adventures in Syria. Israel will not allow any party to threaten its security. It would be better for Erdogan to continue giving empty and fanciful speeches against Israel in the Turkish parliament rather than testing Israel's resolve to defend itself.
Yeah, I mean, it echoes what I've been saying about Erdogan. Talks a big game, doesn't do a lot.
You know what's so amazing to me? That Israel really feels that they can defeat Turkey or they can defeat Iran. They can. It's unbelievable,
Yeah, it's called hubris. They don't have a good sense. They're not good at self-evaluation and recognizing, do we have limitations, or recognize what would be if we did this, if somehow we defeated Turkey in some major battles, what would be the outcome? Would the Turks leave us alone, or would they go to Pakistan and say, hey, give us a nuke? So like I could I can see this thing getting out of hand. Israel miscalculating and Turks overreacting.
Because we know that defeating it doesn't mean that you're gonna go there and bomb the people by fighter jets. You have to go underground to defeat a country, like what's going on in Ukraine, for example.
Right.
And Israel doesn't have the forces, the country with the size of, how you can go against a country with 85 million people or 93 million people and you somehow believe that you're going to defeat them.
How many are under the age of, say, 10? Any idea?
And under the age of what?
10 years old?
In where?
Iran?
In Iran? I don't have any idea.
And in Turkey, that'd be one thing to look at, just to see what the makeup of the population is. And in Ukraine right now, I think that number's been terribly screwed simply because so many people have left the country already.
I know that something like 65% of the Iranian population is the people, young people, 32 to 45, something like that. And more than 65%. So it's not going to be an easy task. But after all, Israel doesn't feel that they're going to fight it. It's all about the United States